Welcome to our deep dive on Cyber Risk 101. Today we're going to be looking at the world of cybersecurity. And even if you don't, even if you're not a tech expert, by the end of this, you'll at least know what to look out for.
Yeah, exactly. Think of it as a beginner's guide to the wild west of the internet. There's a lot of dangers out there, but knowing what they are is the first step to staying safe.
Okay, so no need to become a cybersecurity expert overnight.
Not at all. We'll break down the major threats, in simple terms and give you a sense of why they're so common. And then in later deep dives, we'll unpack each one individually. We'll, get into the nitty-gritty of how they work and what you can do to protect yourself.
Sounds like a plan. I'm ready to explore this digital frontier.
Yeah.
So what's the first danger we need to be aware of?
Well, let's start with malware. The stuff that everyone warns you about but never really explains. It's essentially malicious software, right? It's designed to mess with your computer or steal your information.
Okay, but why is malware so common? It seems like everyone's trying to create it these days.
Well, the motivations vary. Some attackers are driven by financial gain. They want to steal your money or sell your data. Others are motivated by political or ideological goals, right? And then there are those who just want to cause chaos.
So it's like the Wild West out there, a mix of outlaws, vigilantes, and troublemakers.
Exactly. And just like in the Wild West, there are different types of threats. We've got viruses that spread from computer to computer, worms that replicate themselves, and Trojans that disguise themselves as harmless software.
So how do you know if you've been hit with malware? What are the warning signs?
But that's a good question. Sometimes it's obvious. Your computer starts acting slow, programs crash, you see strange pop-up messages. But sometimes malware can be very sneaky and operate in the background without you even noticing.
That's scary. It's like having a digital thief in your house, not even knowing it. So what can we do to protect ourselves?
Well, we'll go into more detail in later episodes, but the basics are pretty straightforward. Install a good antivirus program, be cautious about what you click on and download, and keep your software up to date.
Okay, so be aware, be cautious, and be prepared. Got it. What's the next threat lurking in the digital shadows?
Let's talk about phishing. This one's all about deception. It's when cybercriminals try to trick you into giving up your personal information. Think of those emails that claim you've won the lottery or need to update your bank details.
Oh yeah, I get those all the time. They're usually pretty easy to spot though.
You'd be surprised how many people fall for them. Phishing attacks are getting more sophisticated, and they often exploit human emotions like fear or urgency.
So it's like those old con artists who used to prey on people's gullibility.
Exactly. And just like those old con artists, they're always coming up with new tricks. That's why it's so important to be aware of the different types of phishing attacks and how they work.
So how can we avoid taking the bait? What are some red flags to watch out for?
Well, always check the sender's email address carefully. Does it actually match the organization they claim to be from? And be wary of any emails that create a sense of urgency or demand immediate action.
So it's like taking a moment to think before you react. Don't let them rush you into making a mistake.
Exactly. And if something seems off, trust your gut. If an email or message seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Okay, phishing is definitely something I'll be watching out for from now on. What other cyber threats do we need to be aware of?
Let's move on to ransomware. This one's a bit like a digital kidnapping. It's when attackers encrypt your files and demand a ransom to unlock them.
So they're holding your data hostage. That sounds terrifying.
It can be incredibly disruptive, both for individuals and businesses. Imagine losing access to all your photos, documents, and important files.
I can't even imagine. It's like having your entire digital life locked away in a vault.
And the scary part is ransomware attacks are becoming more common, and more sophisticated attackers are constantly finding new ways to exploit vulnerabilities and infiltrate systems.
So it's like they're always one step ahead.
In a way, yes. That's why it's so crucial to stay informed about the latest threats and take steps to protect yourself. We'll talk more about ransomware prevention in a later episode, but for now, just remember that backups are your best friend.
Backups. So if my computer gets hit with ransomware, I can just restore my files from a backup. And it's like nothing ever happened.
Exactly. It's like having an insurance policy for your data. We'll cover the details of backups later, but for now, just know that they're essential.
Okay, backups are definitely moving to the top of my to-do list. What other cyber threats do we need to be aware of?
Let's talk about social engineering. This one's a bit different because it's not about, technical hacking. It's about exploiting human psychology to trick people into giving up information or taking actions that compromise their security.
So it's like those scammers who call pretending to be from your bank.
Exactly. They might sound very convincing, using official-sounding jargon and creating a sense of urgency to pressure you into making a mistake.
It's amazing how manipulative they can be. But how do they even get your information in the first place?
Well, sometimes they might already have some basic information about you, like your name or email address. They can then use that to build trust and make their scam seem more legitimate.
So it's like they're building a profile of you to figure out the best way to trick you.
Precisely. They might even use information from your social media profiles to personalize their approach.
That's creepy. It's like they're watching you and learning your weaknesses. So how can we protect ourselves from social engineering attacks? It seems like they're playing mind games with us.
You have to be cautious and skeptical. Don't take anything at face value. Verify information from multiple sources before you trust it. And if something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
So it's all about being a critical thinker and not letting our emotions get the best of us.
Exactly. And if someone asks you for personal information, especially over the phone or via email, be very cautious.
Okay, I'm definitely going to be more suspicious from now on. What's next on our cybersecurity tour?
Let's talk about denial of service attacks, or DOS attacks, for short. Imagine a website as a store with a limited number of doors. A DOS attack is like sending a huge mob to that store all at once, blocking the real customers from getting in.
So it's like creating a digital traffic jam.
Precisely. These attacks flood websites or networks with so much traffic that they become overwhelmed and crash, making them inaccessible to legitimate users.
And who's behind these attacks? Is it just mischievous hackers having a bit of fun?
While some DOS attacks might be motivated by pranks or mischief, many are carried out by cybercriminals with more malicious intent. They might use DOS attacks to disrupt businesses, extort money, or even cover up other cybercrimes.
So it's like using a smokescreen to distract while they're doing something else.
Exactly. And the consequences of DOS attacks can be significant. For businesses, they can lead to lost revenue, damage to reputation, and disruption of critical services.
Wow, those DOS attacks sound pretty serious. So how do you stop someone from just flooding a website with traffic?
There are a few ways to mitigate the risk. One common approach is to use firewalls, which act like security guards for your network, filtering traffic and blocking anything suspicious. Another strategy is to use intrusion detection systems that monitor for unusual patterns of traffic.
So it's like having a security system that alerts you if someone's trying to break in.
Exactly. And for websites that are particularly vulnerable to DOS attacks, there are specialized services that provide DDoS protection. DDoS stands for Distributed Denial of Service, which is a more sophisticated type of DOS attack that uses multiple computers to flood the target.
So it's like having a whole army of security guards protecting your website.
Precisely. These DDoS protection services can absorb the massive traffic flows generated by DDoS attacks, preventing them from reaching the target website.
It sounds like there's a lot to learn about protecting against DOS attacks. I guess we'll have to wait for a deep dive on that topic. But in the meantime, is there anything else we should know about the general cybersecurity landscape?
Well, one important thing to remember is that cybersecurity is not a one-time fix. It's an ongoing process that requires constant vigilance and adaptation.
So it's like staying in shape. You can't just work out once and expect to be fit forever. You have to keep at it.
Exactly. You need to stay informed about the latest threats, update your software regularly, and adopt good cybersecurity practices.
This has been incredibly insightful. I'm starting to understand just how complex and ever-changing the world of cybersecurity is. Before we wrap up part one of our deep dive, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with today?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from malware and phishing to ransomware and DOS attacks, but we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore, and we'll be diving deeper into each of these topics in future episodes.
It's great to hear. I'm already eager to learn more, but for now, I want to encourage our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell for notifications so they don't miss any of our upcoming deep dives. We'll be back soon with even more insights into the world of cybersecurity.